Okay, thank you all for being here. And today I would like to talk to you about the future of education and what is the next big step in the way we learn and gain knowledge. Now, I'd like to introduce the topic by first pondering upon the current way we learn. Now, the current way we are educated in schools and universities got us to a certain degree in gaining knowledge, trying to solve our problems, and obtaining technological advances. But it has serious flaws or drawbacks, if you will. Like, for example, if you want to learn a certain branch of knowledge, like physics, you are given a large number of references, and you end up being confused by so many ideas and hypotheses about a certain topic. Also, because we don't know the correct answer from the start, we go into something called trial and error approach, meaning you try something, it might work, it might not work, and that consumes so much of your time and resources. Now, the last thing, or the one before that, that is taking us a very long time to try to solve our problems, like curing illnesses, for example. And the last thing is that the system is mainly based on memorization. So the student becomes like a walking library with little ability of practicing what he's being taught. So the big question is there a proposed or a new way of learning? Or are we stuck with this way of teaching in schools and universities? Now, the answer to this question is yes. There is a new way of learning, and I strongly believe to be the way of the future. Now, this technique or this new way of learning is completely taken from the last revelation of Allah God to people of the Quran. And it's comprised of three very easy to follow steps. Now, the first step can be learned by pondering upon the first three verses of chapter 55 of the Quran. I'll read the verses in Arabic and then give the translation. In Arabic, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaqa al-Insan. In English, the most beneficent has taught the Quran, He created man. So we see in these verses that Allah God Almighty links the teaching of the Quran with the creation of man. So the reason is that in other places of the Quran, Allah describes His creation as the process of assembly. So you as a human being, you're an assembled product. And the reason why Allah links the teaching of the Quran with the creation of man is to tell you that this Quran is your user's manual. You as a product, this Quran is your instruction manual. And as the case with any instruction manual, it should contain the solutions to your problems. So the bottom line here, the first principle, is that the Quran is the only book you will need to learn any branch of knowledge. It's a big statement. If you want to learn physics, engineering, chemistry, psychology, sociology, you only need the Quran, and I'll show this with examples. The second and third principles can be learned by pondering upon verse number 21 of chapter 59 of the Quran, the ending words, وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Such are the examples that Allah puts forward to people that they may think. So the second principle is that you need to learn by examples. There is no time for lengthy hypotheses or theories and wasting 3 years of your life understanding a certain hypothesis. Now, the last principle is that Allah says that you may think. So there is no room for memorization here, it's just thinking. So I would like to show you this new way of learning using examples. The first example is entitled Earthquake-Resistant Structures. Now, what's the problem here? The problem is with all our learning and civil engineering, we failed to produce a good design for a structure that can withstand earthquakes. And as a result, when an earthquake hits, you have a huge damage in a city or a country. And the recent example of what happened in Japan, I think something we can all relate to. Now, people, based on their trial and error approach, based on their guesswork and conjecture, they're trying to get solutions. Like, for example, using these huge X-frames to support the structure, using more cement and steel to make thicker and thicker walls, hoping that these thicker walls would produce a strong structure that's capable to resist earthquakes. Now, these proposed solutions, they have many problems. Like, for example, self-loading. Let me give an example. When a person puts on more weight, he's stressing his knees, he's pressurizing his knees even before walking. That's called self-loading. You are actually being loaded by your own weight. So when you use more cement and steel in a structure, you're actually putting stress on the structure even before an earthquake hits. So by trying to solve a problem, you create another one. Also, using more cement and steel, you are actually increasing the construction cost. You are consuming more of earth resources, which means that it's an environmentally unfriendly structure. But the bottom line, we failed. So the big question now, okay. So the big question, I would like to show you how we can solve this problem that people fail to do in more than hundreds of years to find a good earthquake-resistant structure in a matter of minutes from this Quranic proposed solution. In a matter of minutes. We'll solve it now, actually, within my 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So let's apply the 3 principles. The first one, the Quran is the only reference you need. So you want to learn civil engineering from the Quran, and we can do that. The second principle, that we need to learn by examples. No time for theories and hypotheses. Now we want to search, is there an example in the Quran that would solve this for us? And there is. In chapter 16, verse 68, Allah says in Arabic, وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ. In English, and your Lord inspired the bees, saying, take your habitations in the mountains and in the trees and in what they erect. So here we are given the examples of bees and their habitation. So if we think about bees, as you can see here, you see that you have hundreds of bees around the hive, producing large vibrational forces from the flapping of their wings and from the movement of their body. Like those vibrations produced during earthquakes, large shaking of the building. And yet, the hive remains stable, it doesn't crumble, so it's strong, and it's earthquake resistant, and it's light. Now those 4 requirements, a structure being light, stable, strong, earthquake resistant, is what you need in a man-made earthquake resistant structure. So you have the solution there. It's ready in front of your eyes in a matter of minutes. That's the optimal design. Right. Now, the third principle is to ponder upon things. So if we ponder upon a beehive, we see that Allah created the beehive. The basic unit is a hexagon. As you can see, a hexagon is a geometrical shape having 6 sides. And one of the main features of a hexagon is that it has a 120 degrees angle between the walls. So Allah created the walls of the beehive having an angle of 120. Now I want just to focus on this 120 angle and to see how much it contributes to a structure being light, stable, strong, and earthquake resistant. In order to do that, I want to compare the way we build today based on our guesswork. As you can see, the one on the left, this is the way we build our rooms. And you can think of your lovely room at home. It has 90 degrees angle between the walls. As you can see here, 90 degrees. Now, Allah teaches us not to have 90, to have 120. So I just want to compare these 2 designs, how they respond. So in order to do that, let's do some computer simulations. Now, in the computer, we have a model on the left, is the way we build our rooms, squares and rectangles. The Quranic design shown on the right is to build our rooms as hexagons. So you can think of your room if we build it as a hexagon, not as a square or rectangle. So we have these 2 computer models. Then what I did next is that I apply forces to both models, like the forces produced during earthquakes. And on the left, we have the main link in the way we build, the 90 degrees. Please remember that. and the Quranic design on the right with the 120. So, and keep in mind that both models, they have the same material properties. They are both concrete, and they have similar dimensions for the walls. So the only difference, or the main difference, is the 120-degree angle. Now, the computer then can produce certain results. What you see here are displacements. Displacements, I mean by them, how much the walls would move if an earthquake would hit both designs. Now, the one shown on the left is our rooms. The concrete wall moved 34 centimeters. Imagine a concrete wall to move 34 centimeters. Basically, it's the beginning of the end. It predicts structural collapse. Now, the Quranic design, which we learned in a matter of minutes, and remember these words, this is the way of the future in learning. The one on the right, it just moved 3.5 centimeters. Imagine from 34 centimeters to 3.5 centimeters movement. So this shows that the Quranic design, it's much more stable, it's stronger, and it's earthquake resistant. Now to further, thank you. Now to further highlight this point, here we see the huge difference in displacement values between the two designs. We have 90% reduction in movement of the walls if your rooms were hexagons instead of squares. Now, just let me put these numbers into practice. Suppose that you want to build a new house. You decided today to build a new house. If you do the rooms as hexagons, it's very easy to do. Instead of squares and rectangles, then you'll end up, and trust me on this, you'll end up with something more stable, stronger, earthquake resistant, and suppose that you need 30 centimeters of wall thickness if you want to build the conventional way, to have a certain strength. My calculation showed that you only need 7.5 centimeters, 10 centimeters as wall thickness if you want to do the hexagons, from 30 to 10. So you saved 1/3 or 1/4 of construction cost. Now, just to show you some eye candy, some animations, here you see the way we build our rooms, like your lovely room at home, the one on the left. When an earthquake hits at, let's say, forces produced higher on the Richter scale, like 7 or 8 or 9, you can see the walls actually collapsing. The whole structure is folding on itself. While the Quranic design, shown on the right, it's being displaced but remain intact. So it's much more stronger. Okay, so this just shows you a flavor of the new way of learning which I'm proposing. Okay, so let me show you another example about traffic congestion and car accidents. And I think this is something we all can relate to. Now, why traffic congestion is a problem? Number one, that it wastes so much of your precious time. Secondly, it affects your mental state. You become agitated, and that affects your work. Thirdly, of course, accidents, injuries, and waste of human life. Now, let's see the problem. The problem is, here we have 3 examples of city designs of how we design our roads, taking 3 cities, Amman, London, and New York. You see that there is a main theme in the way we design our roads based on our guesswork. Again, trial-error approach. We always, nearly always, put the angles 90 degrees between the main roads and the side roads, and the side roads themselves. The main trend to put 90 degrees. Why is this 90 degrees a problem? Suppose that a driver wants to go into this 90-degree side road, this right-angle side road. He needs to slow down so much in order to enter the side roads. This creates 3 problems. The first one is that the cars behind you need to slow down so much, and that creates traffic congestion. The second thing is that you have a higher incidence of accidents because of this almost abrupt stopping. The third thing, that you wear down your car, your brakes, your tires, and the entire framework of your car. So it's a big problem. So let's see how we can solve this problem from the Quran in a matter of minutes. how we can learn transportation engineering from the Quran. Again, learning by examples. The example is in chapter 27, verse 18, where Allah says, حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنودهم لا يشعرون. In English, till when they came to the valley of the ants, one of the ants said, O ants, enter your dwellings, lest Sulaiman and his hosts crush you where they perceive not. So here we are given the example of ants and their colony. And Allah gives us the example of a very common observation. You see hundreds of ants around the colony. When they perceive danger, like you are walking near to the colony, you see the hundreds of ants disappearing in a matter of seconds. Now, if you look inside the colony, you see that Allah taught them to build a road network, like a tunneling network. Now, here's the statement. The fact that the ants can disappear in a matter of seconds, hundreds of ants, this means they don't have